Welcome back. You're still watching Nile Cruise on Nile TV International, a very special episode from the Coptic Museum in Cairo, celebrating Christmas and, of course, the New Year in Egypt. And in this segment of Nile Cruise, we'll be focusing on the relationships between the Muslims and the Christians in Egypt since, of course, the days of Prophet Muhammad, peace be upon him, and still right now and nowadays, as President Abdel Fattah al-Sisi said during the Christmas Mass on the 7th of January, that we should be having an equal relationship between Muslims and Christians according to the Quran. We'll be speaking more about the relationships between the Muslims and Christians in Islam and nowadays in Egypt with Sheikh Zakaria Gamal, the member of Azhar Fatwa Global Center. Thank you very much for being with us today.
Thank you for having
Thank
me.
you very much, Sheikh Zakaria, for coming in today. If we want to talk about the principles of the citizenship in Islam, what can you tell us?
Yeah, okay. In the name of Allah, the All-Merciful, the Most Kind, all praises to Allah, the Creator of the universe, reveals the Holy Quran to His Prophet Muhammad, Allah's peace and the blessing be upon him, as a guidance and the light for the whole mankind. And Allah's peace and the blessing be upon Prophet Muhammad, his companions, his household, and those who followed him till the day of judgment. At the outset, let me thank you for hosting me today and give a brief account and to depict how the communities were before the advent of Islam. There were no religious pluralism. The people should follow the religion of the majority or the religion of the king. And even if it were to be some people, minority people to follow some specific religions, they were oppressed, and their wealth and their health, even their lives, were vulnerable to bloodshedding and etc. Even Muslims in Mecca were oppressed from this lack of religious pluralism. After the Prophet Muhammad, Allah's peace and blessing be upon him, migrated from Mecca to Medina, the first thing he entered Medina while there were many tribes, many religious groups, such as Al-Aws, Al-Khazraj, Bani Auf, Bani Najjar, and the religious groups like the Jews and even the polytheists in Medina. The first thing was the Prophet Muhammad did in Medina is to establish the constitution of Medina. This document, based on the idea of citizenship, everyone in the community of Medina has the same rights and the same obligations as it is for Muslims. Even he is Jews, polytheist, and even he is from Al-Aws, Al-Khazraj, and etc. Prophet Muhammad, Allah's peace and the blessing be upon him, by establishing this document, ended the tribal and the religious discrimination that happened during these times. And all of them agreed on the idea of common and cooperation on peace and war. Even in the Battle of Uhud, some of the polytheists and some of the Jewish people fight with Prophet Muhammad, Allah's peace and the blessing be upon him, as Ibn Asir stated in his famous book, The Complete History. And I think the name of one of the Jews who were killed in the Battle of Uhud was Mukhayriq. And the Prophet Muhammad praised him, and they said he was the best of the Jews. And also Roger, the famous philosopher, the French philosopher, said Islam was the first to establish a community that is not based on tribal and blood ties, but it is based on mutual respect and citizenship. This is how Islam established the first small community, and this community is an example for us to implement. We have no minorities and majorities. In Islam, all people before the law are equal, and no privilege for anyone for anyone over the other before the law. All of them are equal in dealing, in transaction, and even in all aspects of life. Before the law, all the humans and all the citizens in Egypt are equal.
Yes, and speaking of the relationships nowadays between the Muslims and Christians, more specifically in Egypt and in times of Christmas, more specifically, how do you see the relationship? How should it be going between Muslims and Christians now?
I wanted to emphasize something that the relationship between Muslims and non-Muslims and the Christian especially is based on the and taken from the verse number 8 of Surah Al-Mumtahana, in which Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala says لا ينهاكم الله عن الذين لم يقاتلوكم في الدين ولم يخرجوكم من دياركم أن تبروهم وتقسطوا إليهم إن الله يحب المقسطين. Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala never forbid you from dealing fairly and kindly with people who never fight you and never expel you from your homes, that you may deal with them freely, fairly and kindly, as Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala likes the fair people and the people who are just. So this is a principle that we have, all Muslims should have while dealing with the non-Muslims, especially the Christian. And for the people of the book or Christians, especially, Islam legislated many regulations that strengthen the relationship between Muslims and non-Muslims, as Islam permits us to eat from their food, to marry from their women, and all of these actions and regulations will increase the relationship within the same community between Muslims and non-Muslims. Even Prophet Muhammad, Allah's peace and blessing be upon him, was good neighbor to his Jewish neighbors, and he used to visit them, used to exchange with them gifts, and we used to eat from their food. And once, as Al-Bukhari narrated, that once the Prophet, Allah's peace and blessing be upon him, visited a Jewish while he was sick, and offered the Islam for him, and the man accepted Islam, and Prophet Muhammad said, praise be to Allah who rescued him from the hellfire. And also Prophet Muhammad commanded us not to belittle and transgress against the people or the citizens from non-Muslims who live in Muslim countries. Prophet Muhammad says, whosoever transgress against the mu'ahid is the citizens, the non-Muslim citizen who live in our land. Whosoever transgress against a mu'ahid or deprive him from one of his rights, or even overload him or take something from him without his consent, he will be my opponent in the day of judgment. And even Prophet Muhammad, Allah's peace and blessing be upon him, warns us against transgression, also against the non-Muslims, the non-Muslim citizens, especially the Christians who live within the Muslim communities. Prophet Muhammad, as was narrated in Al-Bukhari, whosoever kills a mu'ahad or a non-Muslim citizen, lives in Muslim majority countries, will never smell the fragrance of paradise. However, its fragrance can be smelled of 40 years of travel. So all of these hadith and all of these ayats shows how strong is the relationship between Muslim and non-Muslim should be. And also Prophet Muhammad, Allah's peace and the blessing be upon him, guided us while we talk with the people of the book, to speak with them in softness and with good manners. Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala says, وَإِذَا حُيِّيتُم بِتَحِيَّةٍ فَحَيُّوا بِأَحْسَنَ مِنْهَا أَوْ رُدُّوهَا. And if somebody saluted you, you have to salute them with a better salutation. And this is how Islam enforces and established for a community that is established on justice and the mutual respect between the citizens in the same community.
Sheikh Zakaria, the Quran mentioned Mary. There's specifically a surah on her. If we were to ask you about what is the position of Mary in the Quran?
Before explaining or highlighting the position of Mary in Islam, I wanted to emphasize a very important point, that Islam or believing in Jesus as a prophet and believing in his message, one of the prerequisites of Islam, as Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala says in Surah Al-Baqarah, قُلُوا آمَنَّا بِاللَّهِ وَمَا أُنزِلَ إِلَيْنَا وَمَا أُنزِلَ إِلَى إِبْرَاهِيمَ وَإِسْمَاعِيلَ وَإِسْحَاقَ وَيَعْقُوبَ وَالْأَسْبَاطِ وَمَا أُوتِيَ مُوسَى وَعِيسَى وَمَا أُوتِيَ النَّبِيُّونَ مِنْ رَبِّهِمْ لَا نُفَرِّقُ بَيْنَ أَحَدٍ مِّنْهُمْ وَنَحْنُ لَهُ مُسْلِمُونَ. And say, we believe in Allah and believe in what was given to us and what was given to Abraham, Ismail, Isaac, Jacob, and the tribes, and what was given to Moses and Jesus, and what was given to prophets before and after them. We make no distinction between any of them, and we are completely surrender and submit to Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. So believing in Jesus as the prophet from God and his message is one of the prerequisites of Islam. As for his mother Mary, it's sufficient to say she was mentioned in the Holy Quran 34 times, 23 times connected with or linked with her son Jesus, and she was mentioned 11 times separately, and that emphasized the high position that Mary had in Islam. As the Quran goes on to explain how Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala chose her and elevated her over the women of this world. And I remember here the verse from Surah Al Imran, in which Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala says, وإذ قالت الملائكة يا مريم إن الله اصطفاك وطهرك واصطفاك على نساء العالمين. And behold, when the angels came to Mary and said, "O Mary, Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala has chosen you and purified you and chosen you over the women of the universe." And also the Quran purified her from any accusations that some people alleged against her and insulted her of having some indecent acts. We as Muslims believe that she is pure and she has no faults. As our Prophet Muhammad, Allah's peace and the blessing be upon him, said, كمل من النساء اثنين آسيا زوجة فرعون ومريم ابنة عمران. And two women were perfected, the Asiya, the wife of Pharaoh, and Mary, the daughter of Imran. And also Prophet Muhammad, Allah's peace and the blessing be upon him, said, the best of women in the Jannah and in the paradise will be Khadija, his wife, Fatima, his daughter, Asiya, the wife of the Pharaoh, and Mary, the daughter of Imran. And so Mary had a great status and a great position in Islam, and Islam always purify her and raise her in high ranks.
Yes, and speaking of the significance of the early migration of the Muslims to Ethiopia, how do you see it?
After the operation, as I said before, the operation increased in Mecca. Prophet Muhammad, Allah's peace and the blessing be upon him, guided the minority Muslim or the small number of Muslims, the Sahaba who believed in him, to migrate to the Negus, the king of Al-Habasha, the Abyssinia at that day. And he guided them to go there, as this king was just and a fair man, and he would offer them protection. And this was shown clear when Quraysh delegated two people. One of them was Amr ibn al-As, to bring them back to Quraysh. And when they negotiated the matter with Negus, the Negus refused to give them the Muslim immigrants who fled there from the torment that Quraysh inflicted Muslims with. So this highlights the great connection and the relationship between Muslims and Christians from the very beginning of the nation of Islam.
Yes, Sheikh Zakaria, how do you perceive today?
Good evening, it's 5 p.m. in Cairo time for the hour's top stories presented to you by Manali Libieri. President Abdel Fattah al-Sisi held today a phone conversation with his Russian counterpart Vladimir Putin, during which both leaders exchanged opinions on the latest developments in Libya. Presidential spokesman Ambassador Bassam Radi said that the president reiterated Egypt's assertion to its constant stance towards the importance of putting an end to illegitimate foreign interference in the Libyan affairs that has negative repercussions on the whole cause and which also stalls efforts exerted to achieve the security and stability in the region. On his part, the Russian president asserted his country's keenness to achieve a comprehensive political solution to the Libyan crisis, as both leaders agreed to intensify bilateral efforts to find a permanent settlement to the crisis that includes all elements of the cause. The talks also tackled the latest in the Gulf area in the light of the recent developments, and both stressed on the importance of calming down the situation and avoiding escalation to preserve the stability of the region. Prime Minister Mustafa Madbouli said that the current situation requires coordinated efforts of the government and the private sector in carrying out the state's developmental projects. The Prime Minister's remarks came during his first meeting with members of the group of improving investment environment and maximizing the participation of the private sector. The meeting came in the framework of the state's plan to benefit of the investment tools to encourage businessmen and investors to pump more capitals in various developmental projects across Egypt and to attract foreign investments. Madbouli reiterated he is open to different opinions and proposals which aim to push forward the wheel of investment in Egypt and to eliminate all the obstacles facing it. Prime Minister Dr. Mustafa Madbouli said that Egypt is keen on facilitating investment in all fields, adding that the state is also paying special attention to Egyptian investors working abroad. Madbouli also reiterated that the state provides investors with various good investment opportunities in the homeland. The Prime Minister's remarks came during his meeting with State Minister of Immigration and Egyptian Expats Affairs Nabila Makram and members of the initiative dubbed Communicate, which includes a number of Egyptian doctors working abroad. The meeting also tackled establishing an international medical city in Egypt, supervised by Egyptian doctors working worldwide. The Libyan army welcomed the Russian peace initiative to achieve stability in Libya. Nevertheless, it said the Libyan forces will keep fighting terrorist groups. The army added that its battalions will still try to take control of country's capital Tripoli from these groups, which receive support from a number of countries and governments. The Libyan army attached a number of conditions to achieving a ceasefire, including the dissolving and disarming of militias and an end to military aid. Tunisia's parliament looked poised to reject a proposed new government on Friday after only one party said it would support it in a vote of confidence, meaning a complex coalition-building process may need to start again. Designated Prime Minister Habib Jimli urged parliament to support his proposed cabinet as the debate began on Friday morning before a vote expected later in the day. However, the only party in the parliament to say it will back his government is the moderate Ennahda, which nominated Jimli as Prime Minister after coming first in the October 6th election with 53 out of 217 seats. The parties that have already said they will vote against it have a combined 120 seats, so Jimli would need to peel off some of their MPs as well as winning over all independents to secure the 109 seats needed for majority support. U.S. lawmakers concerned about rushing to war with Iran adopted a measure aimed at reining in President Donald Trump's ability to take military action against Tehran. The resolution was introduced by Democrats after Trump's order to kill Iranian General Soleimani and retaliatory missile strikes by Tehran escalated tensions and raised fears of war between the two countries. The vote witnessed 3 members of Trump's Republican Party joining Democrats in approving the measure, demanding the president not to engage in military action against Iran unless authorized by Congress. As lawmakers launched a day-long debate over presidential authority, Trump insisted he needed no one's blessing to launch attacks. That's all for now. Thanks for watching. This is Manal Ibiari signing off.
Yes, Sheikh Zakaria, how do you perceive today the relationship and the friendship between Christians and Muslims?
As I said, the relationship between Muslims and non-Muslims is based on the verse number 8 from Surah Al-Mumtahana. And it is worth to mention here that Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala uses the word al-birr. And al-birr here, as explained by Prophet Muhammad, al-birr huwa husnul khuluq. And al-birr is the good morals. And also this word is used to depict a highly respected relationship, is a relationship between the father and his sons and daughters. As when Prophet Muhammad, Allah's peace and the blessing be upon him, was asked what is the best of deeds, he said birrul walidain. So Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala used the same word, that to be good with your father, and to be good with your mother, and to be good with the non-Muslim who live beside you or who live with you in the same community. So there is no harm to make a friendship with non-Muslims or Christians, especially we live in the same community. We have the same goal to enforce and support our country, our beloved country in which we live all. We defend our country together. As what's happened in 73, the war of 73, we find that the Muslim soldier besides the Christian soldier, they defend each other, they support each other to defend the external enemy. This is how the relationship should be. This is how the relationship should go on, and go on more and more to achieve the prosperity to our country and to our nation.
Yes, how can we be protecting the unity of us as Muslims and the unity of us as Egyptians now?
It is highly important to stress here that we have to make sure of the rumors and the information that comes to us through media or through social media, and to make sure and to ascertain of these informations, to avoid any conflict that our enemies wants to implant in our society, and wants to make a conflict between the one tissue or the people of one tissue in our society. We live here together, we love each other, we go for the prosperity of our beloved country.
All right. Sheikh Zakaria Gamal, member of Al-Azhar Fatwa Global Center, thank you very much for joining us on Nile
Thank you
Cruise.
for having me today.
Thank you.
Thank you
And
so much.
we still continue here for Nile Cruise from this very special place, the Coptic Museum in Old Cairo, right after this break.